Is it unfair? Probably. Are you going to be able to change it? That's going to be hard. The goal should be that tipping should feel like a positive act, not a punishment tool. It's about acknowledging the collective effort that ensures a safe and enjoyable experience. You've just surfaced from an unforgettable dive. The ocean's wonders still fresh in your mind. Think about the people who made that experience possible. For many dive professionals and boat staff, tipping isn't just a simple bonus. It's a crucial part of their livelihood. But how do you decide what is appropriate? What if we tip too much or too little? In this video, we'll explore the nuances of showing gratitude in the diving world, helping you navigate this often overlooked aspect of your underwater adventures. As someone who has had to tiptoe this hot topic with many divers and heard many perspectives, I hope to give some thorough food for thought for today. Stay tuned to uncover those thoughtful ways to express appreciation without overstepping boundaries, keeping both sides comfortable and respected. To understand why tipping is such a big deal in diving today, let's look at where the practice even came from. Tipping has been around for centuries, with its origins tracing back to 16th century England. Initially, it was a practice among wealthy patrons rewarding their private staff, eventually spreading to public spaces like coffee houses. Over time, the custom crossed the Atlantic to the United States, where it faced mixed reactions. Early on, some even sought to outlaw tipping, viewing it as a way to reinforce class inequality, particularly after the Civil War. By the early 20th century, however, tipping became ingrained in American service culture as employers realized they could shift compensation responsibilities onto the customer, keeping wages lower. What matters is that the practice grew, then spread with tourism and global business. Over time, more and more of the world embraced tipping, whether it was brought to them via travel industry from places with tipping or employers hiring locals from tipping regions to keep their margins more slim in priorly non-tipping regions. Today, it's fair to say in most of the world, tipping is there in some form or other. Not all, but a fair amount of the world. So there really is no escaping unless you have a time machine and you can wind that clock back. Here we are today with tipping. This history directly connects to scuba diving industry today, where tipping remains essential for workers. Dive professionals, including dive masters and boat crew, often rely on tips to supplement modest base wages, modest to even low base wages. Their work goes beyond providing a service, includes ensuring safety, sharing expertise, and creating memorable experiences. For example, imagine a dive master hearing you've never seen an eagle ray before and finding a way to get you to a dive site and right in front of one as it majestically flies by you. These moments often inspire divers to tip more generously. Not all experiences will be equal, but there are some truly outstanding dive professionals out there. Tipping in diving isn't just a token of gratitude for many professionals. It's a significant part of their livelihood, especially in some parts of the world that tend to favor low wages in favor of tipping. So remember, the employer pays them less with the expectation that tipping covers their wage. Is it unfair? Probably. Are you going to be able to change it? That's going to be hard. The scuba diving industry has unique tipping dynamics compared to other service fields. A single dive trip might involve multiple contributors: a boat captain, instructors, tank handlers, and deckhands, some of whom work behind the scenes but are crucial to the operation, like the cooks. Tipping in this context isn't solely about rewarding visible service. It's about acknowledging the collective effort that ensures a safe and enjoyable experience. This does add a layer of complexity though, as divers must navigate whom to tip and how much. Regional and employer differences further complicate tipping norms. Some regions may believe in stronger wages instead of relying on tips, and that tips should be refused, while mostly tipping as more of an expectation than a thoughtful show of gratitude. While this business model isn't unique to diving, it raises ethical questions about whether workers should rely on customer generosity for income. At the same time, many divers appreciate the opportunity to personally thank professionals for exceptional service, like spotting that eagle ray or generally marine life or enhancing their underwater adventure. Here's how I think about it though. In a lot of ways, we instinctively look at a base price and think it's a good deal. But that generally doesn't include all the hidden fees. It's similar to a restaurant bill in the US. For example, the menu price looks low, but once the fees and tip are added, the real cost, it is a lot higher. You'll experience service charges, even supplementing the cost of the food's competitive low prices. Fees for the fees, and have to tip on top of all that. So, here we are. No one is going to regulate all these nonsensical business practices anytime soon, or so I think. I'd love to be proven wrong, but we'll see. And the diving professionals and the boat staff working their hardest to make sure you have a good time should not suffer for these decades of business culture practice. Ultimately, tipping in scuba diving serves dual purposes. It's a way to express gratitude and a financial necessity for many workers. Despite criticisms for the tipping system as outdated or unfair, it can foster a sense of connection between divers and professionals who enhance their experiences. For many, tipping isn't an obligation, it's a way to say thank you for moments that make the diving unforgettable. And even if you hate it with a passion, the diving professionals and the support staff that you interact with are not to blame. This brings us to the practicalities of tipping in scuba diving. How much, when, and who to tip. These considerations depend on region, the type of diving, and the local custom. While it can feel overwhelming, approaching tipping thoughtfully and respectfully ensures you're contributing fairly to those professionals who make your underwater adventures possible. Next, we'll explore specific tipping guidelines to help you feel prepared for your next diving trip. Now that we've covered why tipping matters and who it reaches, let's talk about when and how much. This part is tricky because customs vary a lot depending on where you are in the world, and sometimes even dive shops in the same country. In the United States, tipping is almost always expected. You'll commonly hear recommendations for 15 to 20% of the total dive cost. So if you spend $100 on a 2-tank dive, leaving $15 to $20 for the crew is a regular baseline. In some places, it's easier to think of tips per tank or even per dive day. For example, many divers in the Caribbean tip about $5 to $10 per tank, or $10 to $20 for a 2-tank dive trip. If you're on a liveaboard, the expectation is usually higher, but it could be the difference between a more budget to a luxury liveaboard as well. It's not unusual for operators to suggest $200 to $300 per week per diver, sometimes even more for more premium trips. At first, that can feel like a lot, but remember, you're basically living aboard, and the crew is working non-stop around the clock to keep you safe, fed, and happy. In other parts of the world, tipping isn't as ingrained. Places like Australia, New Zealand, and much of Europe don't have the same tipping culture, and wages are often structured a little bit differently. That said, dive professionals everywhere appreciate the gesture, so even if it's not expected, a tip is rarely unwelcome. Who's gonna reject money? When in doubt, ask other divers who have been there before, or discreetly check with the dive shop manager about the local customs. And this is, of course, best done before your trip so that you can have the money prepared. One thing to avoid is ignoring the expectation entirely. Dive professionals talk, and if the local culture leans toward tipping, being the person who skips it completely does get noticed. Nobody wants to be that diver. Also keep in mind how you give the tip. Cash is king in most places, especially small currency bills in the local currency. Handing a stack of small bills to the captain or passenger manager, sometimes called the cruise director, who distributes fairly to the crew and dive staff, is often the smoothest system. Some shops pull tips. Others let divers hand them directly to staff. Both systems can work. Just follow the norm where you are and whatever has been established. If you're traveling internationally, plan ahead. ATMs near remote dive locations can be unreliable, and arriving on the boat without cash puts you in an awkward spot. Some shops take credit cards for tips, but not all. I have been seeing it more regularly as time marches on though. And for those trying to rack up points on your credit cards, that might be an option as well. But check to make sure they allow credit cards for tips beforehand. Build tip money into your budget just like you would for gear rental, food, or park fees. It's part of the cost of the expectations of the industry and greater part of the world of travel. And yes, there are times when tipping could be adjusted. If service is truly outstanding, you can go above the norm. A little extra shows you noticed and appreciated the effort. On the other hand, if the service feels lacking, this is where divers sometimes get stuck. If the crew was professional, safety conscious, and did their job, but maybe the visibility was bad or the dive site was underwhelming, that is not on them. Don't blame the crew for things they cannot control. Those are factors to avoid considering when deciding how much to tip. If the actual service was poor, say the crew was careless with safety, ignored problems, or acted disrespectfully, that's when you can consider tipping less. But even then, it's often better to give direct, respectful feedback rather than silently cutting the tip. Because how can someone learn if you didn't even give them feedback? Just not giving a tip isn't a way of helping someone grow. This way, the shop, the crew, or specific individual has a chance to improve. Constructive criticism goes a long way. Overall, the goal should be that tipping should feel like a positive act, not a punishment tool. It's a way of saying thank you for keeping me safe and making this all possible. Okay, let's clear up a few myths because I hear a lot of confusion around tipping in diving. Myth number 1, tipping is just an American thing. While it's true, the US has the strongest tipping culture, divers all over the world tip their crews. It might not always be expected, but it's widely appreciated and is quite common. Myth number 2, if I paid a lot for a dive package, the crew must be already well compensated. Unfortunately, that is rarely the case. Even at expensive premium resorts or liveaboards, much of your payment goes towards overhead, boats, fuel, permits, maintenance, into the owner's Swiss bank account. The business takes all. Tipping is often left as a way to compensate low wages for employees. Thus, the professionals you interact with often see little of that money. Myth number 3, tips only go to the dive master IC. In most cases, tips are shared among the whole team. The crew who fills your cylinders, deckhands, cooks, the room cleaners, even the boat drivers who got you to the site. That's why pool tips are so common. They make sure the whole system gets recognized. Myth number 4, if I don't tip, it won't really matter. The truth is, it does really matter. Tips often make the difference between a dive professional staying in the industry or leaving it behind. These are passionate people who love the ocean, but passion does not pay rent. Your contribution helps keep them in the water and teaching, guiding, and protecting that reef. Myth number 5, you should always tip even if your guide is the business owner. This is a tricky one. A business owner literally sets the prices and could just increase the price if they wanted more money. At the same time, if they are acting as a guide, they might want to have the same level of fairness to their staff. I won't say never tip the owner, as it can be difficult to tell when it's appropriate or not to. My best advice here is to ask, ideally before the trip is underway, what the expectations for tipping the owner should be. Should you be prepared to tip, or is it not expected and basically included in the price tag? Don't be afraid to ask, especially before your trip. And one last myth. Tipping is awkward. I don't know how much, who to hand it to, or what's normal. That's exactly why we're having this conversation. Once you know the guidelines, it becomes a bit more simple. Think of it as part of your dive planning checklist. Mask, fins, regulator, BCD, and money for the trip, including cash for tipping. It's all part of being prepared and a respectful diver. Here's what I recommend, but it will take some prep work, which will make a huge difference in your tipping game. If the owner or business have not provided clear documentation on their tipping expectations on their website, then reach out and ask for it and see if it falls within your expectations. They can recommend a baseline on what to expect to tip. Further, you can make a difference to others by asking them to add this information to their website. This helps with transparency for all parties involved, the guests, the crew, and the business. If you disagree with the level of transparency of the business or the expectations, then it might be worth considering booking with a different company altogether that promotes better transparency and practices. Remember, ultimately, we may not be able to make tipping go away entirely. You vote with your wallet, and you can make a difference by deciding where to take your business. Tipping transparency can be a real game changer for the industry and something I personally like to see more of. So if you find a company that isn't transparent with their tipping and you ask them how much to tip and you're not satisfied with their answer, or they're not willing to add that to their website, do consider trying to take your business elsewhere, and together you and I can work towards tipping transparency, which will just take much less stress off of all of us. Tipping in scuba diving is showing appreciation for the hard work that ensures safe, memorable dives. Plan ahead, respect local customs, and embrace tipping as a way to support the dive community. Tips sustain the livelihoods of dive professionals who prioritize safety and share their passion for the underwater world. Knowing a fair price and expecting to pay tips in a lot of ways means that the wage for the staff is half the mental battle and sets you up for success and not being thrown overboard by the angry crew. If you have your own thoughts on tipping practices or your own tips on tipping that I didn't cover, let me know in the comments below. And another stressor of travel can be packing. If you're preparing for a trip, check out this video here. Or if you're looking for ideas where to plan your next big getaway, check out this series here that goes over a number of destinations for diving. The more you know, the more you'll love and protect the ocean. Till next time.